is a franchise-based English learning course. It aims to open at least one branch per year in Indonesia. The business model is quite simple. It recruits foreign teachers from English-speaking countries such as the USA, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. It provides Indonesian working visa, and therefore native English speakers has been its unique selling point. It also hires Indonesian English teacher with 50-50 ratio due to Indonesian government regulation. Its teaching material is combined between in-house developed materials and outsourced materials such as Oxford and Pearson publishing books for teaching English. It also combines online and offline English teaching for children where 90% of classes are produced offline. It strategically locates its branches inside big shopping malls where high visibility and continuous stream of foot traffic customers inside the malls provide valuable source of sales leads.
Hi guys, so we're going to talk about the business model for Faber English. I'm going to explain briefly about the franchisee and franchisor duty in Faber English, so you know what needs to be done between each of them. The first one is franchisor. Franchisor in Faber English have 5 main responsibilities. The first one is to provide supplies and licensing for the franchisee. Second one, franchisor or Faber English is responsible to manage the marketing territory between 10 branches. And the third one is to provide IT, marketing, legal, and HR support to help those franchisees operate their day-to-day responsibility or day-to-day job. And the fourth one is to support franchisee with continuous training, mostly sales training, and updates. Number 5, franchisor or Faber English is responsible to run campaigns, mostly marketing campaigns, to grow brand awareness for Faber English. So that is the duty of the franchisor. So now we're going to talk about the franchisee duty. The first one, the franchisee is responsible to run daily, day-to-day operation and supervision. The second one, the franchisee is responsible to recruit, motivate, and retain those branch level employees. The third one, the franchisee is responsible to meet the academic and operation standard set by the franchisor, in this case, Faber English. Number 4, franchisee is responsible to support the local community and hire Indonesian teachers as well as native speaking English speakers. Number 5, Faber English is responsible, the franchisee is responsible to manage the merchandise and inventory stock in the respective branch.
We have this current challenge. So COVID-19 pandemic has presented a monumental challenge for Faber English, as shopping malls are forced to shut down by the province government. Foot traffic is virtually reduced to 90%, and it requires online teaching to be the main mode of teaching, where the ratio of online to offline teaching has turned upside down.
Sales also has taken hit. To survive its operation, Faber English must acquire at least 50 new students per branch per month.
We are going to inform you about the key stakeholder. We have elements on the key stakeholder itself. The first one is Faber English as a company. The second one is the students of Faber English. The third, parents of the student of Faber English. And then the local governments. The next one is about the malls building management where branches are located. And then the supplier. Supplier means person build publishing, outsource, and etc. And the the last one is the mall visitor itself.
Even Harvard is struggling. One of the most prominent universities in the world struggles during this pandemic. In the Financial Report 2020 with fiscal year end at 30 June, Harvard is reporting minus 3%. It's decrease in revenue, whereas last year it booked growth of 5.7%. Also, it operates at deficit $10 million. Compared to last year, it's surplus of $298 million. So what important to note is the report includes only the first 3 months of the pandemic situation from March to June, whereas we started to do the lockdown. So these 3 months, so it's already affecting your financial situation like that. We're wondering how large is the impact up to now. We will see that in the report next year.
How did this happen? First, it is because the number of new enrollment programs down. Foreign students do not get their visa approved. The second reason is in-person executive class is suspended. C-level corporate class that generate cash is suspended. The third reason is there are significant cost increase for remote class. Harvard needs to set up their online and remote classes. The next reason is increased cost for health measures. Important researchers remain ongoing, so additional health measures required to support this. And the last reason is there is large cost on the dormitories buildings despite not being used. As we know that it is big complex of university buildings, so significant costs are required to maintain it.
So although online education has been introduced quite some times, Harvard chose to remain focused on in-person education as their main value proposition. So we know that this is very difficult time for everyone, but with its resources, Harvard should prepare better. With better consideration on online strategy, it might help Harvard perform better in this pandemic.
Incorporating quantitative work in scenario planning is to identify the input that later will be considered in deciding the driving forces and critical uncertainties. And also the output or the result is expected in the scenario planning. The first and the second input in incorporating quantitative work are related to the technology. The first input is the number of internet user, smartphone and other mobile device user, while the second input is the electrical consumption in the area. As we all know that the growth of technology nowadays is very fast, and whether we like it or not, education sector will have to adapt to these changes. Therefore, the first and second input will be determine the readiness of the citizen in particular city to accept the growth of the technology. The third input is time required to process working visa, especially for foreign teachers for English-speaking countries such as USA, UK, and Australia. As mentioned before, that having native speaker as a teacher is one of the main unique selling point over by English Faber that can be their competitive advantage.
The fourth input is upper middle class disposable income. Since Faber English branches are mainly located inside big shopping malls or other places with high visibility, therefore the main target of Faber English market is upper middle class citizens. Then the fifth input is growth of target demographic. Since the main target of Faber English market is children and teenagers ranging from age of 4 to 14, the growth of target demographic is one of the most important parameters that has to be considered in constructing scenario planning. The last input is the number of established brands in the area, such as Starbucks and Zara. It is used to find out whether the citizens in particular city, especially upper middle class, are following the latest trend or not. And then, by combining all these inputs, the output that is expected in the scenario planning is growth of the number of the student, which will result in a growth of Faber English profit. Then the next slide is Faber English student acquisition. The first table above shows the actual number of Faber English students as per 1 January 2020, along with actual number of new students from Q1 to Q3 2020, and also the expected number of additional students for Q4 2020. It can be seen from the table that the biggest number of Faber English students is in Jakarta. It is understandable since most of Faber English branches are located in Jakarta. Then, The second table below shows the forecast of Faber English students or student acquisition expected by Faber English for each quarter from 2021 up to 2025. It can be seen that the average for all cities, Faber English expected Q1 of each year will give the highest number of new students, while the lowest number of new students is on Q3. It can also be seen that Faber English expected a gradual increase in the number of new students every year.
Regarding the 6 input identification, I will then explain the causal analysis for the input. First is number of broadband internet users and electricity consumption in the area can be used as a measure of the readiness of the area, whether the area is ready and the infrastructure is also support, so that later they can support Faber English in increasing their profit. The next input is the time required to process working visa for native teacher to work in Indonesia can be a measurement for increasing the number of native teachers to teach in Indonesia. If the work visa process tends to be easy and fast, it can be unique selling point for Faber English to add new participants to join Faber English.
For the next input, namely disposable income of upper middle class and the growth of the demographic target, which is one of the key inputs of potential consumers, meaning that the parents who have upper middle income and with demographic growth whose targets have been achieved have the potential to register their children at Faber English to produce more Faber English participants. And the last input is the number of Starbucks brands to become brand awareness, meaning that the presence of the Starbucks store in an area can be an assessment that the area is following the trend so that it can attract participants to join Faber English.
The projection parameters describe the estimated projection in 2035, whether the project's expectation output can be successful or not. For the input number of broadband internet users in 2035, it has a projection to be 40% of the total city population, meaning that if this project value is less than 40%, it means that the expected output in the form of additional profit cannot be successful. For electrical consumption in the area, in 2035, it has a projection to be 40% of the total household power at 2,200 kWh, meaning that if this value is less than 40%, it means that the expectation output in the form of additional profit cannot be successful.
For the time required to work on a working visa, Indonesian working visa, in 2025, it has projected 1 until 2 months since the initial submission form. So, if the time required is more than 2 months, it will actually slow down the expected output, and that is ultimately will delay the new student acquisition for Faber English. Second one, for upper middle class disposable income in 2025, it has projection to be 40% of households will have 5 million disposable income. If there are more households having income of 5 million rupiah per month, less than 40%, then it will be difficult to achieve the expected output target, which is to get new students. And the third one, for the growth of target demographic in 2025, it has projection of 5%. So if it's less than 5%, it means the output expectation, which is the acquisition of new students, it will be hard to be success as well. The fourth point, the last input, for the number of Starbucks stores in 2025, it has projection of at least 3 stores in each area. If there are only less than 3 stores, it implies that it will be difficult to reach our new student sales target.
We determine the parameters for X and Y axis, infrastructure for Y axis, and customer demand for X axis. The infrastructure key variable consists of technology penetration, such as internet provider, hardware visibility, and software availability, while the customer demand consists of emerging needs to suburban area, demographic which is targeting 3 until 11 years old student, and middle upper income class. The scenario metric for Faber English classified into 4 scenarios: deserted planet in first quadrant, then supernova, death star, and highlight comet. The started planet scenario characterized by sufficient infrastructure and low customer demand. Expected character for this scenario, many suburban area and household has been reached by internet penetration, electrification ratio is relatively high, small number of target customer in suburban area not materialized enough to build physical branch. With those characteristics mentioned above, Faber English able to do action by expand the online class to cater small target customer and class introduce the nearest existing brands. The second scenario is Supernova, characterized by sufficient infrastructure and high customer demand. The character for this scenario, many suburban area and household have been reached by internet penetration, electrification ratio is relatively high number of target customer, middle upper income, and millennial parents have different thoughts about their children education plans. And the action for the Faber English with this scenario, offline and online expansion, edit additional new language course or class such as Mandarin, Hindi, etc. as anticipating for another global wave of after westernization. And the last is using artificial intelligence concept in education, automation, where no specific physical teacher presents there.
Okay, the next scenario is Dead Start scenario, which is the condition where we have low customer demand and insufficient infrastructure. Therefore, the option we can take to survive in this scenario will be focusing on surviving in this environment, such as cutting costs, holding or postponing business expansion, and tweaking the product of Faber English to become more easily accepted in this environment. And the character of this scenario, we have three main characters of the scenario. It's the low customer demand. Second one is insufficient infrastructure in the city. And number three is some suburban area and households that have not been reached by internet penetration. So to recap, the action that we can do in this scenario is number one, no expansion, of course. Number two, to cut costs. For example, laying off employees. And number three, to offer new product with existing resource, for example, communication skill, but to different target of customer. The fourth scenario, we call it Helicomet scenario, which is characterized by insufficient infrastructure and high customer demand. There are five main characters of this scenario. The first one is some suburban area and households that have not been reached by internet penetration. Number two, we have government limiting foreign worker, for example, native speakers. Number three is increasing target demographic. Number four, we have increasing upper middle class income in small cities or suburban area. And number five, we have increasing number of small cities or suburban area sophistication. For example, the trend awareness. Therefore, we have four main action plans for this scenario. The first one is we can do offline expansion. Number two, we can cooperate with local government to provide infrastructures. And in return, for number three, we have personalized after-sales service. And number four, we have decreasing composition of native speaker and spreading through the branches.
Talk about the background of the company, our prediction of future situation, and how we incorporate quantitative work in our scenario planning. In this slide, we try to make an adaptive policy based on the previous quantitative work and the scenario. The adaptive policy is meant so a leader could communicate the scenario planning easily. We made our plan output based on 4 scenarios. How we decide which scenario we are leaning to is based on input parameters. That's why the input parameters are something that are measurable and will affect our output. And then we calculate the threshold number, which is the minimum number necessary to achieve the expected output. Two parameters, number of broadband internet users and electrical consumption in the area, are input parameters for profit output. For parameters, time required to process working visa, upper middle class disposable income, growth of target demographic, and number of Starbucks are the input parameters for numbers of new student output.
These thresholds are act as an early warning signal. If two infrastructure parameters do not reach threshold, the scenario can change to lonely comet or dead star, depend whether the two customer parameters reach threshold or not. If it is, then we will use the lonely comet scenario. If it is not, we will use dead star scenario. If two infrastructure parameters reach threshold, the scenario can change to supernova or deserted planet. It depends whether the two customer parameters reach threshold or not. If it is, then we will use supernova, and if it is not, we will use the deserted planet scenario. Each year or every 6 months, we could check the early warning signal and make adjustment accordingly. This way, subordinate or our branch office can respond quickly to the situation based on this framework.
Okay, and then we are going to the effective leaderships. Through the information given previously, there is several steps that we take to measure the effectivity of the leaderships. The first one is identify the decisions. It means that the initial step to find the right decision by recognizing problem and the opportunity. The second one is gather information. This is the function of the gathering information through data and the facts. And the third is identify alternatives. After recognizing the issue, we move to the step of identify various of solutions and then weigh the evidence. It is the needs of evaluate for feasibility, acceptability, and desirability to understand which one is the best, and then choose among alternative, combining our potential decision to minimize the risk, and then take action, creating plan for the implementation, and final is review your decisions. It means that evaluating the decision made to get improvement in the future.
We come up to 3 categories of effective leadership. The first is personal attribute. The business gives privilege to their customer by inviting the native speaker as their teacher. The second, personal competence. The organization has successfully bring atmosphere of open-minded to survive in the future. This enables the individual to find solution through good communication with internally or externally and deliver it to each party. Then the third is fit it with situation. During the pandemic time, the organization could be able to move rapidly since the current conditions show that they need physical learning to do the business. The source of the problem were the government regulation that limited the mall opening, no in-house class for education, and in addition, the anxiety to meet other people made it worse. But they finally figured that using online platform would reduce and increase the ability to engage with technology.
So yeah, it is a shared belief among companies who are undergoing through pandemic that they will emerge stronger than before. This is as much true means that the condition faced by Faber English today would make them grow stronger and as an organization compared to the previous years. Faber English developed 4 scenarios based on infrastructure and customer demand variables. These are, we call it deserted planets, supernova, dead stars, and helicomet. The intention of these 4 scenarios is to help the company to adapt to the outside condition beyond their control. So, however, Faber English will be focusing only on 2 scenarios that given the biggest advantages for Faber English. That is the supernova and helicomet scenario.
Ultimately, there is a prerequisite condition that implies within 4 scenarios, which is an effective leadership is a given condition in the Faber English management. Therefore, company can navigate these scenarios easily and communicate the company's strategic planning, and the employees have the agility to adjust which strategic planning they should follow based on the early warning signals.